What's up, YouTube? It's me, Jamie K, and today we are going to be talking about my Nclex resources. I want to talk about the resources that I use, how I studied, how long I studied, and if I felt like the resources that I used were beneficial or not. So let's jump right into the video. The last video that I made was about my Nclex day and the days leading up to the Nclex. It was like an Nclex vlog, so if you haven't checked that one out, make sure you do. Like I said before, I don't know if you watched the last video, so I did pass my Nclex in 75 questions. I am officially a registered nurse, which is super exciting, and I cannot believe that I'm finally saying that. So I will be working in an emergency department, which is where I've always wanted to work. Let's jump right into what I used to study. So I used two main resources, which was markklimek and Uworld. I also used Hurst, which is what my school supplied us with. Our school gave us the 3-day live Hurst review. It was kind of just a big review of what we learned in nursing school, and it literally covers everything: maternity, orthopedics, respiratory, endocrine, renal, pediatrics, fluid and electrolytes, cardiac, burns, oncology, GI, psych, neuro, and it even gives like tips and ways on how to pass the test. So Hurst was very helpful, especially at the end of nursing school, because it was just like a big nursing school review. So I felt like I really liked Hurst, and my initial plan when I didn't have a plan was to use Hurst primarily and solely. But after I started using Hurst, I was like, their questions were very stressful and it made me feel like I didn't know anything. So in the middle of my study plan, I stopped using the Hurst book. Not that anything was wrong with it. I felt like this was very helpful, very informational, very important. But I just felt like I should start doing more questions and focusing more on answering Nclex style questions, because I had a basic understanding of majority of this stuff. So just like reading over it one time, I felt like was enough for me. I didn't want to do too much and go too in depth. Hurst questions were also very, very detailed, and that brought my confidence level down. So I just stopped using Hurst, and I only started to use it supplementally, like if I had a question about burns or if I didn't remember anything about placenta previa. So basically you just fill in the blanks. What medications are used for chest pain when they get to the ED? Pop quiz. So this is the whole MONA or MON thing that people use. So you got your morphine, your oxygen, your nitroglycerin, and then your aspirin. It's something really good to know. Like Uworld wouldn't just come out and say that. You would have to answer a question that had chest pain in it to get that type of rationale. However, with Hurst, you can just go to the chest pain section and it'll just be there for you to read over. So that's the good thing about Hurst. I used it occasionally instead of as my primary study material. So Hurst course content was very helpful, and I definitely recommend it. I just didn't really like their questions. So on to my second resource. I'm going to skip to markklimek because I'm just going to talk about Uworld last, because I feel like that was my biggest resource that I used was Uworld. So markklimek was really cool, which everyone I'm sure knows about. It's a guy on YouTube that teaches you how to answer Nclex style questions. He doesn't really teach you like Hurst did core content. Rather, he gives you a way to remember the core content and how to apply the core content to an Nclex style question. So I started off with the acid-base imbalance, which was lecture 1 for me. And after that lecture, I was like, where have you been since I applied for nursing school? Like, he is amazing. I used his YouTube videos online. They were free. I also heard that his videos are on Spotify as well. So if you're just like in the car, you can play it on Spotify. And what I love about him is that he gives you ways to remember things and he simplifies it. I love when people simplify things, like, for example, with the peripheral arterial disease and the peripheral vascular disease, with the PAD, and that makes an A and you dangle the legs, and then with peripheral vascular disease, it's a V and then you elevate the legs. Like things like that, instead of trying to memorize it, just coming up with really cute, easy, simple ways to remember things. Well, especially since we have to know and memorize and learn so much stuff in nursing school. So he doesn't just teach you, like teaching is over with at this point. He tells you how to strategize, how to prioritize, and how to answer Nclex style questions. That's really what I love about Mark. So me, I write everything down. If I listen to a lecture, I will literally type down everything, and I did not have time to do that. So I printed off his lectures offline and I just put all of his notes in there. And so as I listened, I would just highlight. So instead of going through and writing down everything that he said, I would just highlight everything that he said, which saved me so much time because the lectures are like an hour or two a piece. So instead of writing down for a whole entire hour or two, I just highlighted and the lecture can just play. I didn't have to pause and play and pause and play. This was very, very helpful. It came with pictures, it came with examples, and it basically just wrote down everything he said word for word. So he has the most important rhythms in here. Like, for example, he has the 6 most tested rhythms on the Nclex. So instead of telling you ACs, bigeminy, trigeminy, everything else, he literally just breaks it down into the top 6, which would be asystole, atrial flutter, atrial fibrillation, ventricular fibrillation, ventricular tachycardia, and PVCs. Klimek used to write questions for the Nclex, so he knows what's most important, what you should really focus on, what you should pay more attention to while you're studying for the Nclex. And that's another reason why I love Klimek. And then what I've heard from my friends and also from personal experience, his last lecture, lecture 12, the prioritization and the delegation lecture is, to me especially, the most important lecture. Thinking about the question, the way he explains it will definitely help you get all of your priority questions right. Lastly, I used Uworld, and I feel like Uworld was my #1 top priority sole resource for the Nclex. I love Uworld because the questions are very similar to Nclex questions. I can say the Nclex questions were not as detailed as Uworld, but they were the closest compared to any other Nclex study material that I've used. So Uworld, I bought the $200 packet. It came with more than 2,000 questions and 2 self-assessments, and it was 90 days. So my total after tax and everything was like $240, which is a lot, but I was like, just pay this now and you won't ever have to worry about buying it again if you use it correctly. Is what I was telling myself. So I invested the money, and I bought Uworld. So I started Uworld in the middle towards the end of January. That's also when I started studying. I love Uworld because it gives you so many different types of questions and you can customize your own test. So when I first started studying, I would read a chapter in Hurst. So just say I would take Peds. I would read over the Peds chapter and then I would go to Uworld and click on the Peds category and do all Peds questions. And then that would be like how I studied for Peds. And then I would do the same thing for OB. I would go over Hurst, OB, watch some OB YouTube videos, and then do OB questions on Uworld. But then when it started getting closer to my test day, I was like, that's when I stopped using Hurst. And then I just started to solely only use markklimek and Uworld. So I would just click on all systems, and then I would click on all categories, and I would just basically get questions about any and everything, because that's how the Nclex is going to be. It's going to be random. So I was like, let me do randomized questions. I don't want to do all OB, all psych, all leadership, all priority, all fluid electrolytes, all form. Like, it's not going to be like that. If it's going to be a randomized test, then you should do randomized questions. That's how I felt about it. So closer to my test day, I just started mixing them all together, and I got questions about everything, which was, it kind of made it a little more difficult because you didn't know what was coming up next, but that's how the Nclex is. I also ordered this from Amazon. This is called Remar Quick Packs for Nclex. And so I just got it just in case I was at work or I was just not busy at home and I just had spare time, free time. And it's basically just like really quick, easy facts. So it goes in alphabetical order, and it's really, really convenient. This is another reason why I love this, because it simplifies. Once again, this is another book that simplifies the tons and tons of information that we have to know. So for example, what is blood pressure? The force of blood flowing through the arteries. What is the recommended blood pressure? 120/80. That seems really simple, but then again, it's a great review. And if you go over everything in a book, it'll cover things that you didn't know. It'll cover things that you forgot. And it'll cover things that you just need to refresh your memory on. And that's really why I love this Remar book. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go through everything. I maybe went through like 20 pages at the most, and it's because it wasn't my sole study material. I didn't use it. It wasn't my priority material, but it was very helpful just to go over quick facts. Basically, it's literally what it is. It's quick facts. Only thing that stressed me out about this book was like on the first or second page, it had like a quiz where it says, take this short test to gauge your current NCLEX preparedness. So basically, if you didn't do good on this test, you weren't prepared for the NCLEX. So I basically failed the little quiz. And so I was like, I guess I'm not ready to take it. But that's the only thing that freaked me out about this book. But I was like, obviously, I'm not ready to test. So for example, one is, I know the steps to change a battery in a hearing aid. Definitely not. At the time, definitely not. I know the steps to drawing up regular and intermediate insulin together. Yes, I knew that. Can a client with a do not resuscitate order request pain medication? Can drinking 6 to 8 cups of coffee cause constipation? The cause of epiglottitis is the flu virus, and I can recite the steps to remove medicine from an ampule. Then, while I was studying, I made flashcards, and so when I was going through my Uworld questions and I got a question about cardiac tamponade, I would write down cardiac tamponade on one side of the card and then everything I knew about cardiac tamponade on the other side of the card. And then I would read the rationale and then I would add things from the rationale onto the card that I didn't know about cardiac tamponade. So then a week later I would review, and then I would be able to know what I would be able to review what I knew about cardiac tamponade and the new information about cardiac tamponade. So that was the purpose of my flashcards. So here's my cardiac tamponade. And then on the back, life-threatening complication of pericardial effusion, compression of the heart caused by fluid collecting in the sac surrounding the heart. And then I would list the symptoms, and then I would highlight things that are important. And I would just review this occasionally just to be able to go over what I know, what I remember, and what I didn't remember regarding the certain topic. So then I would have another card that's causes of cardiac tamponade. And then this card is cardiac tamponade symptoms. And then I had a card on pericarditis. So we got pericardial effusion, endocarditis, bupropion, triglycerides. It's so random. It goes from drugs to disease process to MOA to farm to peds to maternity. And that's what I love about my flashcards, is that I literally can study everything in the palm of my hands. When I have free time, downtime, just flip through my flashcards. Writing stuff out is also a way of learning. So I read it, I wrote it down, and I reviewed it. So I feel like even though I didn't get to review all of them, it was still a pretty good review with all the steps that I did to create the cards. So I ended up with almost maybe 600 cards. I had all of these and all of these. So flashcards are very helpful for me in nursing school, so I was like, why stop now for the biggest test of your life? So we got leukemia, thorax, pacemaker precautions, thyroid toxicosis, chronic kidney disease, diet, urinary retention and opioids, myocardial infarction, lupus treatments, lupus allergy skin testing, you name it, I have a card for it. So those were the last two supplemental things that I used just when I had extra time. It wasn't my #1 resource material. I studied it when I had extra time. So with all of that out of the way, what day did I take my test on? I took it this past Friday, which was March 11th at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I started studying January 21st. Do I feel like this was enough time? I feel like this was more than enough time, especially for someone that's not working. With me, I had to work 36 hours a week every single week until my test date, yes, including the week of the test. So I started my job in January and we were required to work 36 hours a week. So I only studied every day I was off. So I worked 3 days and I had 4 days off. So I would work the 3 days and I would study the extra 4 days, which I didn't want to do, but I also kind of didn't have a choice because my job required us to start in January. This was very stressful, but I managed to get through it. So if I can do it, you can do it. Don't let your job get in the way of you passing the biggest test of your life. Still study, still work hard on your off days. That's all I have for you guys. If you guys have any more questions, I definitely probably didn't answer all your questions. I remember watching videos and I'm like, oh, she didn't answer what I was looking for. But her video was informational, but it just didn't answer what I was looking for. So if you have any more questions, any type of questions you have, let me know in the comments below. Just let me know because I want to help you as much as I can. I hope that this video was very informational and very helpful. It was kind of longer than I expected, but I hope that you guys can find valuable information in it. And just don't forget to be positive and to pray. Definitely pray. I only got through this because I prayed, because God was with me every step of the way, because of my support from my family, my friends, even people I didn't know were supporting me and telling me that I could do it. And that goes a long way. And thank you for watching this video. I will see you guys later, and toodaloo.